Backstage at the Riverside Arts Foundation Gala, I stirred a thin cup of coffee and straightened a borrowed tie clip. The green room smelled of floor polish and old roses. Someone had taped a schedule beside the mirror with 3 misspellings and a prayer. A door hushed shut. Familiar cologne slid in, first the kind that pretends to be cedar and announces its owner before the person arrives. A cool circle pressed my ribs. "Sign the trust amendment," the voice said, as pleasant as a maitre d'. I did not. I lifted my eyes to the ceiling corner where a small camera sat with a steady red indicator. "Wave to the recording," I said. "This room is on the record to the cloud." Noise followed, ice cracking in glasses, quick feet in the corridor, a short surprise scream. If you want to know why I smiled instead of fainting, I will tell you, but first how we got here. My name is Rowan. I am the one people hand the clipboard to, the person who remembers where the receipts live, the quiet, in a room that prefers chatter. I am describing a night from my late 30s. I am older now, softer around the eyes, and surer where it counts. I have worked a long time in community grants. If you have asked parents to sign for field trip funds and coaxed foundations to release emergency dollars, you learn patience. You learn to leave a clean paper trail. Family teaches other lessons. Mine did. Morgan and Jordan, my parents, kept life polished like the ballroom floor. Avery, my sibling, learned to glide across it without scuffing. Casey, the youngest, never quite learned to glide, thank goodness. If you are imagining antique silver and summer whites, imagine also the hairline crack in a teacup no one mentions. That is where truth leaks out. To understand the gala, go back several weeks to a conference room that pretended to be important because it had a long table and a compliant carpet. The attorney cleared a careful throat and read my grandparents' will. No one expected more than keepsakes. My grandparent wore thrift store cardigans and carried a canvas tote with a pen that always leaked. Avery leaned back and whispered to Morgan. "Do we get the chipped plates?" Jordan smiled without showing teeth. The attorney said my name. The estate came to me. It included a living trust, a ladder of municipal bonds, a small but steady royalty from an old regional jingle, quiet shares in a logistics startup few at that table had heard of, and the controlling interest in a modest riverfront cooperative. The carpet seemed to shift under the chair legs. Avery gave one bright bark of laughter. To Rowan, for what reason besides sentimentality, the attorney read the letter of wishes. Steadiness records kept not mistaking noise for wisdom. Morgan's jaw set. Jordan's cheek twitched. Casey looked at me like someone feeling a weather change and deciding whether to bring a coat. Money does not invent cruelty, it gives it better shoes. Invitations began. Strategy brunches, a family group chat named Riverside Legacy. Avery posted glossy renderings of a future building with our surname huge, and my grandparents' name reduced to a footnote. Between emojis came small messages with sharp edges. "Rowan, you have always been generous with time, not stewardship." Then, a voice note after midnight, I was the maintenance person in a museum of better people. I listened twice, deleted it, then wished I had not. Words keep their own copies in your head. Let me ask you something. When family says sign first, discuss later, what do you do, sign, stall, or refuse? You can say it out loud if you like. You are not the only one asking that in the dark. Quinn entered then, a paralegal with a careful smile and a habit of reading footers. Quinn did not narrate feelings, documents did the speaking. "Notice this," they said, tapping a line in a proposed amendment Avery sent to simplify governance. It did not share authority, it removed mine. The title carried my name as if I had agreed. The metadata showed edits long after midnight from a tablet registered to Avery. The pressure pattern on my signature block looked copied from an old apartment application I had once faxed to Morgan. Quinn did not tell me what to feel. They pointed. They let the quiet say the rest. Sage came next, my anchor. We serve together on the library board where the biggest fights are about moving the reference desk. Sage leaves me calm voice notes at late hours. "You do not have to prove you are reasonable to unreasonable people," they said. "Bring your records. Bring air and light. Around us, the town did what towns do. We live by a river that does not rush. It moves like someone walking home from church. There are festivals with polka bands and bratwurst in winter if you know which basement door to knock on. At the country club, the rules are typed in a font that looks like a promise. The donor wall is laminated and smudges when you rub it. The bartender knows how strong to pour for whichever member is not speaking to which cousin that week. Breadcrumbs arrived at a patient pace. A banker called and addressed me as Avery. I corrected them. The apology sounded like a form letter that wanted feelings. A thrift store picture frame at home fell from a nail. Behind the backing sat a sticky note with a safe code in Morgan's careful hand. In the family chat, a calendar invitation appeared for a trust simplification signing, scheduled in the gala's green room. The file attached was named Sign at Event Final. I stared at that name the way you stare at a spider to decide whether it is your business. Casey knocked at my door with a paper bag of store sushi and a look I recognized, bad news carried carefully. "They will corner you at the gala," Casey said. "They say it will look generous if you announce a gift on stage." There is more. Avery has been practicing lines. Casey would not sit. The bag sweated on the table. We listened to the quiet together because sometimes that is all there is to do. Here is a truth I learned after 40. You cannot stop people from being who they train themselves to be. You can stop standing where their habits land. So I moved not away from the gala, but towards steadier ground. I met an estate attorney who filed a petition for a trust protector in case of duress. I spoke with venue security in plain language. I did not ask them to take sides. I asked them to follow the rules posted near the coat check. And in my assigned prep space, the green room, the venue approved a small camera aimed at my door and table. It recorded to secure cloud storage with my authorization. It was not a live stream. The only way that image could reach public screens would be if the event tech routed it there. Otherwise, it sat quietly preserving facts. I also wore a small microphone under my lapel that sent audio to that same account. 2 keys opened it. One was mine. The other went to Quinn. Noah arrived like a friendly gust through a door you thought was latched. New to the job, calm with cables, Noah walked me through the gala's setup. There would be a donation ticker. Remote donors could chat. The ballroom screen usually played sponsor slides and past event photos. A separate monitor in the green room let performers watch the stage. There is a switch that mirrors any feed to the big screen, Noah said, tapping the panel. We do not touch it for private rooms. I nodded. The difference matters. Recording is not broadcasting. It mattered to my pulse. The night came dressed in borrowed elegance. The quartet tuned in the corner like bees deciding where to land. Volunteers arranged silent auction baskets that would make a grandparent smile. I signed the check-in sheet with the stubby pen that always rolls off the table. People said my name the way people do when they know a story but want confirmation on the ending. I kept my shoulders low and my voice steady. There is an art to being present without being bait. Avery glided through the foyer in a suit that photographs well. Air kisses landed near cheeks without finding eyes. Morgan and Jordan held posture like a shield. The lobby chandelier trembled when doors closed. Wind tells the truth to anything that hangs by a thread. Sage brushed my elbow once. Stand still, they whispered. Let gravity do its old work. I carried coffee to the green room when the schedule said. The door clicked. The clone arrived a beat ahead of its owner. The metal circle touched my coat. I could not tell you whether it was real or theater. Fear does not need authenticity to do its job. Sign the amendment, Avery said again. Morgan rested a shoulder near the door. Jordan studied the corners as if truth might be hiding in the baseboards. I set the cup down. I breathed the way an old doctor once taught me: slow, count up, pause, longer countdown. I kept my face ordinary. I lifted my eyes to the camera in the corner, its small red light steady. I nodded toward it. Wave to the recording, I said. This is not private. It is a line that sounds like a joke if you have never been cornered. The room tightened. Then the world outside rushed toward us, the crack of ice and glasses steps that meant business, a voice that could have been a prayer or a curse. I did not move. We had reached the place where patience meets proof. Whether that lens captured a weapon or only the words that tried to become one, it would be enough. You do not need an explosion to reveal a fault line. You need a steady light and enough witnesses. If you have ever felt cornered by your own blood, I am sorry. Tell me what you wish you had done when it was your turn in a small room. And if you want to follow this through to the last, stay with me. The reckoning is not loud for long, but it is thorough. The morning after the will reading, Morgan announced a strategy brunch as if the word brunch could tame a storm. We met at their kitchen table where napkins fold into little sails and there are always 3 jars of mustard even when no one is eating meat. Sun came through the east window and found the scratches on the polished wood. You can dress a table, but light keeps its own counsel. Avery arrived humming a folio under one arm, a smile that made promises on credit. Casey kept to the edge of a chair like a cat that has learned about rocking chairs the hard way. Rowan Avery began the grown-up move is to streamline. The trust needs a face people recognize. I have the network. They slid a packet toward me. The title read, Amendment for Efficiency. My name sat there like a stamp on someone else's envelope. We all know you are excellent with clipboards, Avery added, light and razor thin. Let me carry the weight. The coffee had that faint burned note that takes you back to road trips in a decade you would not revisit. I lifted the first page. The language sounded helpful until the sentence that removed my rights altogether. Quinn would later circle that line in gentle pencil and write the word irrevocable. I set the packet down and asked how everyone's week was going. Jordan's smile showed the kind of patience people save for toddlers. Morgan tapped a sugar spoon against china in a rhythm that always means argument to come. In towns like ours, the river is the metronome. It slows in winter until the geese can think clearly. It gathers speed in spring and carries gossip like driftwood. The week after brunch, people I barely knew offered congratulations and then advice. A neighbor murmured that windfall money makes a person behave like a fool. Another asked if I intended to endow a pickleball pavilion. At the grocery, I passed a rack of discount cards and thought of my grandparent holding one, each small saving, a tiny dignity. The man ahead of me paid an exact change and then said my name gentle as if to remind me I had not changed. I thanked him for that. At home, a calendar invitation from Avery waited in my inbox. Trust simplification signing. Location Green Room Riverside Arts Foundation Gala. I had not agreed to anything. The file attached was named Sign at Event Final. The subject line made my throat hot. I forwarded it to Quinn without commentary, then took a walk. Our town's German roots show in tidy brick, in a street festival where polka never apologizes, in church basements, where volunteers serve fish in winter, and laughter belongs to people who have known each other through 3 floods. At the Riverfront Cooperative, my grandparent helped steer children road scooters on a path that still smelled faintly of sawdust from spring repairs. An older couple sat with a thermos of something not coffee and offered me a nod that said, "We see you, but we do not need details." Breadcrumbs do not fall for free. You have to watch for them. A banker called and addressed me by Avery's name. I corrected them. There was a pause long enough to map a silence. When I hung up, I opened the family group chat Riverside Legacy. At the top sat a photo of a club luncheon, all white napkins and vowels stretched by old money. In the thread, Avery had posted a mock-up of a donor wall with our surname tall and my grandparents' name the size of a footnote. Between emojis, a sentence, Rowan, "This is about community leadership. You have never chased that." I typed nothing. Casey sent a single umbrella icon, a sibling joke about storms we both recognized. That night, a voice note pinged from Avery. I played it once, then again, because disbelief likes company. Rowan has the temperament for volunteer hours, not stewardship. We all know who the adults are. There was a clink, as if a glass had been set down with meaning. I saved the file, then felt a guilt I should not have, as if keeping proof were unkind. Mini hook, if you like that term, a picture frame fell. It had hung crooked in my hallway for years, a thrift find with a watercolor that never quite convinced you. The nail gave. The frame hit carpet and coughed loose its cardboard back. Behind it, a small yellow square. Morgan's handwriting neat a code I recognized from the old liquor cabinet when we were young and supposed to think secrets were magic. I stood very still and understood in my bones that some locks are theater, the door is the point. A soft ding brought me back to the screen. A neighborhood forum I read only when Insomnia Wins had a thread about a certain person with a new inheritance set to mismanage a beloved property. Replies were kind then, less kind than suspicious. I closed the app and told myself not every shadow is a sign. But if you have lived long enough, you know shadows rarely walk alone. Quinn came to my kitchen with a folder, and that calm you only learn by sitting through hearings where everything hangs on a comma. We drank tea. They spread pages. Noticed timestamps they said showing the calendar invites metadata. Edits long after midnight from a tablet registered to Avery. Another page slid forward. Observe the pressure pattern on this old application. The signature block on the proposed amendment tries to match it. It fails. They stopped there. We looked at each other as people do when the room realigns and you find yourself standing in the short part of the circle. I thanked them in a sentence that broke in the middle. Here is your mid-story poll as promised when those you love nudge you toward a pen with a smile and a deadline. What is your next move? Sign to keep peace, stall, and gather proof, or refuse and let the fallout happen? Put your choice in the comments and tell me whether you would do it again. Sage called as dusk came on and the river turned the color of old pewter. Do not become the show, they said. Bring light, not volume. I knew what they meant. Avery wanted a stage. They wanted the story of a wayward sibling called to account. Every humiliation line they had practiced would work only if I answered in kind. There is a way to deflate a bully that is not a slap and not a sermon. It is a mirror. Gala rehearsals began. Noah, the junior tech, walked me through the control board. The donation ticker would crawl. Remote donors could chat. The ballroom screen would show sponsor slides and past event photos. A separate monitor in the green room lets performers gauge entrances. By default, it is private, not part of any broadcast. Noah tapped 2 caps on the panel. Red mirrors a feed to the ballroom screen, they said. Blue keeps a view local. We leave private rooms on blue. Their hands did not shake. Mine did a little. I asked whether my green room audio could also route to secure storage. Noah nodded. Simple enough. Avery's public face grew busier as the date neared. Posts about stewardship and generosity. A short video filmed on the club patio with the river behind their voice warmed their smile flawless. Morgan and Jordan shared it with captions about legacy. Casey sent me only a picture of the river at low light and wrote stand where the ground does not move. Another breadcrumb, a rehearsal email meant for staff, included an attachment. I should not have seen a speech draft with my name in a paragraph promising an on-stage announcement of intention to gift a controlling share for the good of the city. The word intention did a lot of work in that sentence. I read it twice. I forwarded it to Quinn. I took a breath that reached the bottom of my lungs and stayed there. The final brunch before the gala tasted of panic flavored like citrus. Morgan poured juice with brisk gestures. Jordan discussed seating charts as if chairs could decide ethics. Avery dabbed their lips and turned to me with the smile of someone accepting an award. You will do the right thing, they said softly enough that the sugar bowl could overhear. Think how many will praise your name. They paused. You have always wanted to be seen. Here is your chance. Humiliations are efficient when they sound like compliments. I set my napkin down and told them I had already been seen by the person who mattered. It was true. My grandparents' letter of wishes called me steady. There are titles no stage can top. On the drive home, the radio caught an old jingle, the one my grandparent wrote decades ago, the royalty that still found its way into the world with modest checks and honest help. I pulled over and listened to the whole half-minute smiling without shame. In a life where so much noise is purchase and posture, how clean to hear a simple tune do its work without needing an audience. That evening, I walked the river path and watched a barge slide south, patient as an old horse. The sky took its time becoming dark. I thought about the words we let define us and the signatures we give away because someone asks with confidence. I put my phone on airplane mode and ate a sandwich I made badly. When I came home, I hung the frame a little straighter than before. Tomorrow would want its drama. Let it. I would bring light and a mirror, nothing else. The day of the gala stepped onto the calendar like a guest who does not knock. The country club smelled of beeswax and flowers coaxed to bloom early. Volunteers in black moved trays the way river water moves around stones. The quartet tuned until the room settled. I arrived early to watch cables get taped down. I like to see the bones before velvet hides them. The green room waited down a short hall plane table, 2 chairs, a mirror that tells the truth under unkind light. The small ceiling camera glowed a steady red. Its signal went to secure storage, not to any screen. Quinn texted a single line as doors opened. Clause 19 signatures under pressure are void. A second line followed, petition filed. It read like a blessing written without lace. I slid the phone away. I let the night be itself. The lobby filled. Surface talk about lilacs and river height, the quiet business of glances underneath. Morgan and Jordan held posture like a shield. Avery floated camera ready. Casey stood near the back with a folded program. Their hands were not steady. Their eyes were. The program began with small triumphs, a mural finished, a music room kept open, a scholarship that had outlived the person it was named for. My grandparent would have liked those parts. Then the foundation director introduced a surprise tribute. The room leaned forward. Avery stepped to the podium, smile warm enough to loosen wallets. Friends. Avery said, we all know Rowan generous with time. They let that hang. But stewardship is courage. Laughter stirred. No one likes to miss the approved joke. Tonight we invite Rowan to do something brave for the city we love. A hand swept toward the wings. The spotlight found the edge of the stage. I walked out. Running never looks good under a chandelier. Avery's fingers met my elbow, soft and proprietary. Say yes, they murmured. Announce the gift. Papers after. The microphone waited like it always does. I kept my voice for them first. I do not make legal decisions on a stage, I said. Then I lifted my head to let the room hear the end of that sentence. Not tonight, not ever. A hush moved as chairs adjusted and a fork met a plate. Avery's smile did not move. Rowan is thoughtful, they told the crowd, chuckling for approval. Sometimes a little too thoughtful. Let us help them be brave. It performed as a joke. It worked as a nudge. Stop hoarding and start helping. Heads turned toward me as if to confirm whether I deserved the scolding. Here is your mid-story question when someone dresses pressure as generosity. Do you interrupt, walk off, or stand still and let their words show themselves? Put your answer in the comments. What you say there helps more people than you think. Behind us, the LED wall flickered for a heartbeat. Not the green room image. That feed is private unless a switch is thrown. What flashed was a rehearsal folder name, a quick whisper of file titles before the screen returned to sponsor slides. The string players paused mid-phrase. It takes a lot to stall trained hands. Noah at the control station looked toward me, apology and promise in the same glance. The room chose to laugh, then it chose to pretend it meant to laugh. Avery recovered smoothly. Technology, they said, and the tables cheered as if a cat had been rescued. Then lower for me alone, but carried by every microphone sign after this, so we keep momentum. The plan had always been to label refusal as stinginess. A person can drown in a teacup. If the room agrees, the cup is an ocean. I spoke into the mic even and brief. I will not be making announcements or signatures this evening. A second line because clarity respects hosts. I value this foundation too much to move business out of its proper place. The director wore gratitude and disappointment at once, then turned both into applause. Some clapped because they understood, some because cue lights are persuasive. The livestream chat, which I did not see then, did not enjoy the cornering. Moderators kept up, then did not. Sponsors texted the control desk about tone. None of that touched the faces at tables. People still prefer pretending while they are watched. Off stage in the brief shadow where curtains rest. Avery leaned close, smiling for the hallway walls. We tried the gentle road, they said. You push us to the efficient one. The words were nothing on paper. In the mouth that spoke them, they carried an old edge. You were always the volunteer. Let adults handle real value. Cruelty is most efficient when it sounds reasonable. I did not answer in kind. The river is steady tonight, I said. Everything else can be too? Contempt does not always understand calm. The tilt of their head said so. In the corridor, Noah stopped me with hands hovering over cables like reins. I am sorry about the flicker, they whispered. A rehearsal folder flashed when I brushed the wrong cap. The green room monitor is still local blue, not red. I told them not to be sorry. Many good things begin with the wrong switch. Back in the green room, Bach found his place again, 2 walls away. I set my coffee down. The camera's tiny red light held steady. It was recording to cloud, same as before. The door latched. Familiar cologne arrived half a second before its owner. Avery stepped in with a folio and a practice to smile. Morgan came to rest near the handle. Jordan studied the corners like someone counting exits. Sign, Avery said, placing papers on the table as if delivering room service. We are done performing. I looked at the lens. I let the silence do its old work. This room is on the record, I said. It is not private. The reply came sweet as a blade. Do not be dramatic. You were always the helper, never the steward. The mirror in the corner did not flinch. Neither did I. What happened next belongs to the small space where patience meets proof. You do not need volume for that. You need light and witnesses, even if the only witness is a camera that keeps its promises. The hallway carried the soft sound of feet that knew where they were going. I did not move. The night had finally reached the page it had been writing toward. I set the cup down. The room held its breath. Avery closed the door with a stage smile and slid papers across the table. Morgan shifted near the handle. Jordan scanned corners like someone counting exits. Sign, we are done performing. I looked to the ceiling camera, steady red recording to cloud. This room is on the record, I said. 2 soft knocks. Morgan stepped back. The door opened. The protective detail entered calm as ushers. Hands visible, one said. Avery lifted a handgun. It coughed, then died. No flash, only acrid smoke. During the pre-event sweep, the team had already neutralized it by replacing the magazine with blanks and logging the change with venue security. Avery tried sugar over steel. Sign, little helper. Let adults handle value. I did not rise. No signatures in corners, I said, only in daylight. The team secured the weapon and set it aside. Radios quiet. I gathered the papers without touching a pen. Beyond the wall, Bach kept time. The camera kept its promise. The ballroom screen flickered. Noah's finger had pressed the red cap. The private feed mirrored by mistake. Faces turned. The room watched itself, the folio, the failed weapon, the lines meant to bruise. Audio routed next, clean even. The foundation director stepped to a mic with counsel at their side. A brief clarification for donors, they said, recommended by legal to protect trust and keep the program honest. Quinn advanced slides that needed no adjectives. Document metadata with midnight edits from Avery's tablet. A signature pressure overlay mismatched to my old rental form. The cooperative's keycard alerts after hours access attempts tied to Morgan forwarded to me as trustee. Then Avery's voice note played, Rowan is for volunteer hours. Let adults handle real value. The room did not murmur. It measured itself. Sponsor logos faded from the overlay one by one. A final video, my grandparent in a plain sweater. Purpose not polish. The clause was simple. Any heir who attempts coercion forfeits standing forever. The word forever did its old quiet work. Avery reached for charm. Friends of misunderstanding. I kept my voice low. There are only clocks and names. Security escorted Avery out without spectacle. The director called a short intermission to refocus on students and instruments. The live stream chat exhaled. By morning, the court accepted our trust protector petition and issued an injunction against interference. A brand partner paused Avery's public work. Others followed. The club opened a conduct review. Doors did not slam, they simply stayed shut. Mid-story poll with evidence this clear. Would you press charges, settle civilly, or set firm distance and move on? Your counsel helped someone reading quietly tonight. I walked outside. The sky was still blue. Ordinary wind finished what spectacle started. Months moved the way courts move. Avery accepted responsibility for menacing and attempted coercion probation community service counseling. Morgan and Jordan signed consent orders to stop meddling. A formal apology sits in the probate file like a small stone. The trust stayed whole. The cooperative added affordable leases and mended its stairs. The old jingles royalty paid for lessons, no portraits, just instruments in small hands. Startup dividends followed the charter into a community fund. Quinn kept the folders clean. Sage kept my pulse even when strangers tried to edit the story. Noah now labels every cable twice. Casey joined me on the post-scholarship committee and still texts the river when it turns pewter. Family contact narrowed to what is safe. Boundaries are not cages, they are garden fences, so something good can grow. I kept simple routines, Dawn walks board packets with append dinners where napkins are paper and laughter is real. The fallen frame hangs straight, its back is empty. I like it that way. If there is a lesson, it is this. Peace is maintenance. You water it, you weed it, and you do not plant the same trouble twice. Forgiveness for me is no longer rehearsing the worst lines. It is not handing anyone a pen. Closing question. Would you forgive here or let distance do the work? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more true family reckonings or wish to send me yours, subscribe now so you do not miss the next quiet victory. Story 2. It was a Tuesday when my phone buzzed with a message, just 3 words. We all agreed. At first I stared at the screen, unsure what it meant, yet my gut sank before my mind could catch up. A minute later, another text arrived from Mom. You're not welcome at the wedding. No punctuation, just that smug little dash she always used when she wanted to sound formal, a smirk in text form. I reread those words as though blinking harder might erase them. But they didn't change. This was Sarah's wedding, the very one I'd helped plan and paid for. I'd spent months dousing emotional flare-ups, consoling her breakdowns, booking every vendor she was too frazzled to manage. The same sister who just 2 weeks ago had called me her emotional rock as I wired another $1,500 for centerpieces that looked like Pinterest threw up on a florist. My name is Kyle. I'm 31. And until that fateful text, I thought I was doing something good holding this family together when it always teetered on the brink of falling apart. I'm no millionaire, far from it. But I've scrimped and saved, lived modestly, stayed single, socked money away while everyone else splurged and borrowed. For years I believed that made me blessed and them unlucky. Turns out, being the responsible one just makes you the family ATM with no overdraft protection. The wedding was supposed to be next Saturday, a beachside venue on the coast with a ridiculous ivory and gold theme my sister insisted was classy but looked more like a royal baby shower. I paid for half the venue deposit, booked the flights, even reserved the honeymoon suite in Cabo under my name because my mom's credit wasn't good enough to secure the reservation, and now I wasn't welcome. I didn't respond to the message. I didn't need to. Instead, I opened my laptop and quietly logged into the travel portal I'd used for the honeymoon flights, 2 round-trip tickets, business class. Under my email, I clicked cancel and watched the screen blink for a second before the $3,800 refund notification popped up. Then I went into my savings account and initiated a transfer $6,500, the exact amount I had wired to my mom last month for what she claimed was wedding overflow costs. I didn't say a word to anyone. Just watch the numbers move. I felt nothing. Not anger, not even sadness. Just a strange sort of calm, like I'd been holding my breath for years and finally exhaled. The first call came at 8:17 p.m. It was my sister. I let it ring. Then came my cousin. Then my uncle. Then Mom. I turned off notifications and went about my night reheating leftovers and watching a documentary. I didn't absorb a second of my morning. There were 23 missed calls for voicemails and a single message that made my hand go cold. Please call me. It's that stopped me. My dad usually stays out of the chaos. He's a quiet man, the kind who'd rather tinker with a busted coffee maker than get involved in family drama. When I was a kid, I used to think he didn't care. As I got older, I realized it wasn't that he just picked his battles carefully. And for him to step into this one, something was off. But before I could process it, the voicemail started playing in my head, echoing even though I hadn't hit play. I imagined Sarah's whiny tone, Mom's theatrical sobbing, maybe a guilt-laced message from an aunt who hadn't texted me in 2 years. I wanted to delete them all, I really did. But that one message from Dad lingered. This didn't come out of nowhere, it started small. A sideways comment here, a joke there. Last Christmas, Mom said, well, at least Sarah will give us grandkids. Not everyone can say that at the time. I laughed it off. I've never wanted kids and I'm okay with that. But it stung in a way I didn't admit. Then during Sarah's engagement dinner, I noticed I wasn't seated at the main table just to keep things even, Mom had said. But my younger cousin's boyfriend, who had only been around for 3 months, was seated next to the groom. I swallowed that one too. Like always, they were always little paper cuts, never big enough to justify a confrontation until suddenly they were. After Sarah got engaged, everything became an emergency. Mom called me in a panic over cake samples. Sarah had meltdowns about bridesmaid dresses. I was expected to cover whatever the groom's family didn't. And I did because I thought helping meant belonging. I thought showing up with my wallet was how I proved I mattered, but it never bought me a seat. It just made me the unpaid intern of their fantasy wedding. And now I wasn't even invited. I sat on the edge of my bed that morning, my laptop still open, the email confirmation of the canceled flights glowing like a quiet middle finger. I scrolled through the missed calls, each name a little louder than the last. Then I got to the message from Dad. Just 6 words, you need to see this now. That's when my stomach dropped. I stared at the message from Dad, my thumb hovering over the screen. You need to see this now? 6 words, but they carried the weight of something heavier than guilt. My father has always been a man of few words, but every one of them is measured. He's not dramatic like Mom. Not manipulative like Sarah. and definitely not the type to panic. So, if you said I needed to see something, it wasn't going to be another teary voicemail or passive-aggressive family group chat post. I called him. He picked up before the second ring. "Kyle," he said, voice low. "You got a minute?" "Yeah," I said, and suddenly my mouth was dry. "What's going on?" There was a pause. I could hear the muffled thrum of a television in the background. Then the volume clicked off. I didn't know they were going to do that. "Your mom and your sister." I just found out this morning after they locked down the seating chart and made the announcement in the family group chat. "I'm not even in the group chat." I muttered more to myself than him. "I know," he replied quietly. "That's part of it." Another pause, then he said, "Kyle, they told everyone you chose not to come." That hit me harder than I expected. I blinked, trying to make sense of it. "What? They said you were pulling one of your loner stunts, that you got upset over something minor and backed out. Sarah told the family you were always a bit dramatic, and this time you went too far, that you didn't want to be there." I laughed, sharp, bitter, humorless. "So they kicked me out and made it my decision." "Worse," he said. "Your mom said you threatened to ruin the wedding if you came." That knocked the breath out of me. What? Dad sighed. "Like you didn't want to be the one saying this. She told Sarah's in-laws you were emotionally unstable, still bitter about being single, and that you were jealous of your sister's happy ending. Said you were making everything about you, like usual." Like usual. My voice cracked. I had to stand up. My apartment suddenly felt like it was shrinking. "I know, son," Dad said quickly. "I know that's not who you are. I've watched you pick up every piece they dropped. You handled that entire engagement party and no one thanked you. You paid off Mom's second credit card last summer without saying a word. You showed up every time." They didn't, but they don't see that. Or maybe they do, and it threatens them. I leaned against the kitchen counter, my hands shaking. "So, this whole thing, this exile, was a setup to make me the bad guy." Dad hesitated. Then with an exhale said, "It's worse than that. They already started telling people you refused to fund the honeymoon out of spite." That's when I knew something had changed in me. Something broke, but not in the way I thought it would. I wasn't hurt anymore. I wasn't even angry. I felt detached, cold. Like I was watching a rerun of a show I used to care about, but now knew all the plot twists too. "They took the money." "Dad," I said flatly, $6,500, wired to Mom's account for the honeymoon. "I canceled the flights last night. The refund's already back in my account." He was silent for a moment, then softly, "Good." It was the first time in years my father had supported one of my decisions that openly. He wasn't a man of grand gestures, but that one word meant everything. Then he added, "There's something else I wasn't going to tell you, but I think you need to see it." I heard rustling on the other end, then the ping of a message coming through. I opened my phone. It was a screenshot. A group chat. Mom, Sarah, and a few of the aunts. My name was mentioned in the thread. Mom texted, "Don't worry about Kyle. He's just sensitive because no one's ever loved him enough to marry him. I'll talk to him after the wedding. Once he realizes how childish he's being," Sarah texted. "He's a ghost. Let him fade. Just need to make sure he doesn't embarrass us." And Cheryl texted, "So, we're agreed. No +1 for him, even if he begs." Mom texted, "Exactly. No seat, no speech, no drama. He'll get over it. He always does." I read the messages twice, then a third time, and then I deleted them. Not out of denial, but because I didn't need to see them again to know the truth. I'd always been an outsider in my own family. The helper, the fixer, the invisible glue. The glue doesn't get a seat at the table. It just holds everything else together while it cracks. And they were right about one thing. I wasn't going to beg that evening. I sat down and began making a list, not of people to confront, but of systems to dismantle. They wanted me to fade quietly, but they'd forgotten something. I was the one holding the strings. The joint Costco membership with Mom canceled. The Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus family plans removed their profiles. The auto payments I'd been quietly making on Sarah's student loan disabled. And the best part, the vineyard deposit for the wedding. Still under my name. Technically, I was the primary contract holder. They never paid me back for that check. I wrote to lock in the date. I've been meaning to deal with that paperwork later. Now it was at the top of my list as I stared at the contract hovering over the cancel reservation option. I smiled for the first time that day, because if they thought I was dramatic before, they hadn't seen anything yet. By Wednesday morning, the silence from my end had them spiraling. The voicemails went from passive-aggressive to desperate. Sarah's tone morphed with every message, first annoyed, then pleading. "Kyle, can we talk? I think there's been a huge misunderstanding." Mom didn't mean it that way. I didn't respond. I listened with my arms crossed, each new message only confirming what I already knew. They were trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube, and it was far too late for that. But I wasn't interested in revenge for the sake of ego. This wasn't about lashing out. This was about letting go and making sure they felt it. That afternoon, I sat down with a black notebook and started writing out every account, every auto payment, every password-protected bill. I had my name attached to. I wasn't dramatic. I was thorough. The irony. They called me the cold one, the robot, the one who didn't feel things like the rest of us. They were right in a way. I didn't blow up. I didn't scream. I calculated. I logged in Mom's phone plan, which I'd been paying for since 2010 when she got laid off. Suspended. She wouldn't even notice until she tried to make a call during her hair trial on Friday. Sarah's Venmo, which was connected to my bank as a backup card from when she overdrafted 3 times during college and never figured out how to remove it unlinked. And then I reported the suspicious charges on my account just for fun. Fraud protection is a beautiful thing. By Thursday morning, I had an email from the wedding venue, a polite but firm confirmation. "Your cancellation request has been received per the contract. Your deposit will be forfeited unless a replacement booking is secured." I smiled. Let them explain that to the 118 guests flying in for a Saturday ceremony that suddenly didn't have a legal reservation. Around noon, my cousin Mark called. He's the only one who ever treated me like a person, not a tool. His voice was tired. Kyle. What's happening? I didn't lie. I'm done funding a family that sees me as a wallet with legs. He sighed. They're freaking out. Good. Sarah's having a meltdown. She's saying you're ruining her marriage. I gave a dry laugh. If a canceled flight and a frozen honeymoon fund ruins a marriage, maybe it wasn't built to last. You didn't argue, you just said. I wish you'd told me sooner. I always knew they leaned on you too much. That night, I opened my laptop again and logged into my dad's old Dropbox account, the one we used when I helped him digitize all the family records a few years back. Inside was a gold mine of scanned receipts, emails, even the original invoice from the engagement party that I paid for. But Mom conveniently forgot I covered. I created a new Google Drive folder, uploaded everything entitled It Contributions from Kyle Nobody Wanted. Then I copied the link and sent it to every family member on the group thread. I didn't write a caption. I didn't need one. Less than 5 minutes later, I was kicked out of the family chat. Perfect. But the real turn came Friday morning, the day before the wedding. I was sipping coffee and enjoying the quiet when I got an email from the groom's mother, Linda. We'd met once. She was kind, poised, and very by the book. The kind of woman who kept her silverware aligned and said darling instead of sweetie. Her message was short, but it rattled me more than any voicemail subject. Concerned about the wedding, Kyle, I wanted to reach out directly. I've heard bits and pieces about what's going on, and quite frankly, I'm alarmed. If you have a moment, could we speak? I feel like I'm missing some very important information. Best, Linda. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just family gossip anymore. This was a thread unraveling from both ends. I called her. She answered immediately. Thank you for calling, she said, formal but with an edge of concern. I don't mean to overstep, but my son just informed me that the venue may have been canceled. It was, I said plainly. I paid the deposit. It was under my name. She was quiet for a second. That's not what we were told, I'm sure. Another pause. She cleared her throat. Kyle, I don't know what's been said, but I was told you declined to come, that you'd backed out because you were bitter. I let the silence hang, then asked, do bitter people usually pay for floral arrangements, the wedding cake, the DJ, and half the venue? Linda inhaled sharply. I was unaware of any of that. Of course you were. They needed someone to blame when I pulled out, and when I stopped funding it, they made sure to do what they always do. Point the finger at me. Her voice lowered. I understand now why you've distanced yourself. I would have to. But Kyle, there's something you should know. Sarah, she opened a joint credit card with your mom last week, and she used your name on the application. I froze what they claimed you co-signed. My husband caught it when we reviewed the final expenses. He recognized your name on the paperwork. That was it. That was the part that changed everything. I wasn't just the family ATM anymore. I was a target. I sat there, my coffee suddenly cold in my hand, the room closing in around me as Linda's words echoed in my ear. They claimed you co-signed. I hadn't. Not even close. I've always been careful about credit. Guarded. Even after watching Mom default on a car loan in my early 20s and drag her credit into the basement with mine tethered behind it. Because yes, she had convinced me to co-sign that I'd spent the better part of a decade fixing my financial reputation. I knew better. I hadn't signed anything for this wedding outside of what I paid for directly. Do you have a copy of the application? I asked Linda. My voice calm but clipped. I do, she said. Would you like me to send it to you immediately, please? A few minutes later, it landed in my inbox. There it was, staring back at me. An application for a high-limit wedding credit card with a forged digital signature, my name, address, social security number, even my old work email probably lifted from tax forms or bank records they still had lying around. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel sad. I felt clear. All these years I'd been the fallback plan, the fixer, the silent financier, but forging my name that wasn't desperation, that was entitlement soaked in fraud. That was theft, and it was the final straw. I filed a fraud report with a credit card company, took screenshots of every detail. Then I filed a police report. I attached the documentation, the forged application, and a notarized statement of non-consent. Then I picked up my phone, and for the first time since Mom's smug message that started all this, I called her. She answered on the second ring like she'd been waiting. Kyle, she said, her voice overly cheerful. I was just about to call you. I stopped. I said flat. I just want to hear it from you. Did you sign my name on a credit card application? Silence. Kyle, you're being ridiculous. That was just a backup. In case the honeymoon ran over, you know how these things go. Did you sign my name? A long pause, then Sarah said, you would have done it if you knew it was important. I let that hang there like a guillotine. That's not an answer. I said, my voice cold, but it's fine. You can explain it to the investigator when they call that cracked her mask. What, are you serious, Kyle? We're family. You're really going to make this ugly over a little misunderstanding, Mom. I said, cutting her off. You kicked me out of a wedding I paid for, lied to everyone about it, and committed fraud in my name. I didn't make this ugly. You did. I'm just putting it in the light where it belongs. Kyle, honey, please. We can fix this. I hung up. That evening I drove to my dad's place. He was waiting for me on the porch with 2 beers and that silent weather look he always wore when things got heavy. You okay? He asked as I sat beside him. I nodded, slowly getting there. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. You just handed me the beer and we watched the sun dip below the trees. Eventually he said you did the right thing. And somehow that meant more than anything. The fallout came fast. First came the phone calls from family, my aunts, my cousins, even Uncle Greg, who hadn't spoken to me since 2000s. They all wanted to know what was really going on, why the wedding was off. Why Sarah had posted a cryptic Instagram story about being betrayed by blood. I didn't respond. Then came the texts, the apologies, the guilt trips. Kyle, I had no idea. We should have stood up for you. Can we please talk? But I was done being there. Emotional janitor. I let the calls go to voicemail, but the texts sit unread. As for the wedding, it never happened, with the venue canceled and no backup secured. They tried to pivot to a backyard ceremony, but the guests were confused. Some turned around mid-flight, and the groom's family, having learned about the forged credit card, called the whole thing off. Apparently financial fraud before the vows isn't a great look. Sarah went on a posting spree. Cryptic stories, Bible verses, passive-aggressive quotes about snakes in the grass and family who turns their back on you. I didn't flinch. Because here's the thing. Sometimes the best revenge isn't a dramatic confrontation. It's not yelling or exposing someone in front of a crowd. Sometimes it's just clarity quietly dismantling the system that took you for granted. Walking away while the whole rotten house collapses behind you. About a week later, I got a final message from Mom. You've made your point. We're all hurting. You didn't have to go this far. I didn't reply. Instead, I changed my number. I took a few days off work and booked a trip solo. Just me and my laptop on the same resort Sarah was supposed to honeymoon at. Funny thing about being the one who booked everything under your name? You know the cancellation policies? I changed the dates, upgraded. The suite took her champagne package and added it to my reservation, and I sat on that balcony drink in hand, waves rolling beneath me thinking about how long I'd waited for someone to see me. But I finally saw myself. Not the version they needed me to be, not the fixer, not the bank account, just Kyle 31. Free. And finally done trying to earn love. I never owed them in the first place. I don't know if they'll ever really understand what they lost, but I do, and I'm not giving it back.